Why, hello there everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Newsbytes. And actually, it's a bit of an NVIDIA special since they finally, well, after all this time, have gone ahead and announced the next generation cards. All this and more after the intro. Timestamps will be in the description down below. Okay, so what are we actually covering today? Well, basically we're covering the entire announcements, as well as a couple of things from the extra, add-in board partners that they have also announced as a result of NVIDIA saying everything that they have. Well, yesterday now. God, it's been a day already. Can't believe it. So, first things up. Well, you've been waiting for it, and finally, 3000 will be releasing, well, even sooner than hoped for some people. I'd say it's right on time with what we were mostly expecting, with the brand new RTX 3080 being announced for release on September 17th, a absolutely godly RTX 3090 which will be released on September 24th, and a 3070 which will be released later on in October. We'll go ahead and get into them and their specs and pricing, all that lot, in a bit. So in short, we know when they're coming, we know roughly what they look like, and there's a couple of things that really need to be, well, brought up. So the biggest elephant in the room is that push-pull sort of pass-through design, or as NVIDIA likes to go ahead and call it a dual axial flow-through design. Yeah, it turns out it's real. It actually is a genuine, completely blow-through card, which is kind of interesting to see. A bit worrying how it's going to affect CPU temperatures in the future, but it does look like it should be really efficient at cooling your graphics card, which, hey, to be fair, is usually the hottest component anyway. NVIDIA claims that on the 2080 model at least, that it is 66% more airflow, 3 times as quiet, and up to 30% more efficient than the dual axial cooler that you find on the RTX 2080. So, actually looking really good, more efficient, quieter. It's a bit interesting, and some people might hate the way it looks. I'm warming up to it slowly. I don't hate it as much as I originally did. But it is more interesting, as well as NVIDIA is also claiming that apparently it can cool 90 watts more than previous designs, so it'll be interesting to see how many of these claims on the brand new cooler design is actually true. And speaking of brand new designs, yes, the 12-pin connector, it's real officially. We have seen it on all the brand new renders, and of course, showing, well, Jensen Huang showing off in his kitchen himself, it's real, the 12 pins there, we're going to have to just suck up and deal with it, but it does mean that we can have more high power cards. Whether you think that's a good thing or not, that's completely subjective. I'm on the opinion of it's good to a degree, it's bad to another degree. Because on the one hand, it's good that we can have extremely high performance cards, but bad on the other hand that it sort of gives manufacturers like NVIDIA, well, an incentive to just keep creating even higher and higher power cards up until the point where they decide that they need another new standard or go with a dual 12-pin, which is kind of worrying. It's the whole factor of, I think it's good, the fact that we can have high performance, but I do worry what this means for the future in terms of, power supplies. The 3 cards that were announced, which I have said already, were the RTX 3090, 3080 and 3070. Other small features that were announced is NVIDIA Reflex, which is to help reduce latency in games, NVIDIA Broadcast, which is essentially, it's a lot of really cool broadcasting and streaming tools. So say you've always wanted a green screen but you just couldn't afford one, or you don't really want to learn how to use one. Well, NVIDIA Broadcast essentially uses AI to go ahead and do the green screen job for you, essentially clipping all around you and then essentially adding in a background or whatever. You can also do various other cool things like framing you. So say that you're a person that does this a lot and you're bouncing around, obviously you might want to zoom in on your face. Well, it'll actually go ahead and track your movements as if you've got your own, virtual cameraman. It's really cool stuff, I'm not gonna lie. What this means it'll do, I don't know yet, but I am actually quite hopeful for it. And finally, those of you that like making, machinima and stuff like that, NVIDIA Omniverse, which is essentially an extremely cool animation utility with a lot of AI stuff baked in that honestly probably deserves its own video. I might do it in the future, no promises, but it's a lot of stuff that's going to be hard to cover in this small talk through, because this is mainly focusing on other things. Last couple of things to note is Fortnite RTX. That's something that I didn't actually expect to happen, but apparently, yes, Fortnite is now actually getting the RTX treatment. And something that we will get into very shortly when we get onto the 3090 is that NVIDIA is claiming they've got the performance to do 8K gaming on a single card. Right, we'll start from the bottom up, save the best or highest end for last. So the RTX 3070, which is supposed to be released in October, these are, as far as we are aware, it could be different, it could be not. We won't know until we have official numbers from NVIDIA themselves and the cards have actually been released, because they are always subject to change. It could be different, it could not. But as far as we know currently, the GPU is supposed to have around about 20 teraflops of power, which is a quite hefty increase, with apparently 5,888 CUDA cores. We'll get into this whole CUDA core bit after we've gone through the specs of all of them. It will have GDDR6 memory. This one sadly isn't getting the GDDR6X memory treatment, it's instead just sticking with normal GDDR6, which will have a 16 gigabit per second speed with 512 gigabytes per second bandwidth on a 256 memory bus. In terms of its tensor performance, it will have 163 tensor teraflops with 184 tensor cores, and on your RT side it's got 40 RT teraflops with 46 cores. ROPs are numbered at 64. It's supposed to go ahead and have 220 watts power usage, and is priced the same as last time at $499. Now, we would like a cheaper alternative rather than having to pay nearly $500 for a 70 series card. But the amount of performance it's actually supposed to be giving off, it's actually genuinely competitive. NVIDIA have claimed that it's on par or better than a 2080 Ti. Whether it is or not, we won't see until we get it. But if it is, that is actually quite hopeful for getting a lot more performance for a lot less money. And also sort of pointing back to how overpriced the 2080 Ti was. We won't know for sure, because most of the stuff that NVIDIA was showing off in this showcase was ray tracing performance, not rasterization performance. Ray tracing, of course, being the cool, shiny, sexy lighting. Rasterization being traditional gaming, like we've had in Xbox and PC gaming for quite literally decades now. So rasterization performance, we're not 100% sure on what it really means right now. But we do know it is supposed to have a ridiculously good increase when it comes to ray tracing. Moving up onto what they are touting as their flagship, the RTX 3080. This is going to be the first card that will be released. It's been released September 17th, and NVIDIA is making the bold claim that it is as powerful as two 2080. Now, getting into the actual thing itself, it is quite a monster. The GPU has got 28 billion transistors, 30 teraflops, and has apparently got 8,704 CUDA cores. Also, this one we do know the most about, because this is what most of the event was covering, the 3080, rather than the 3090 and the 3070. It seems that they really are touting this to be their main flagship. Getting onto memory, this is the first card that has got GDDR6X with 10 gigabytes of it. It has got a speed of 19 gigabit per second and 760 gigabytes per second of complete total memory bandwidth on a 320-bit bus. On tensor cores, we've got 272 tensor cores with some 238 tensor teraflops, which is quite a big improvement when you look at the 163 of the 3070. So, shockingly, there's quite a big jump between the 70 and the 80, a lot more than you'd normally expect. On the RT performance, it's got 68 cores, again a good healthy increase, almost 50% more than the 3070, and as a result of that, it's also got almost 50% more performance at 58 RT teraflops to the 70's 40. ROPs, it has got 88 versus 64 of the 3070, 320 watts, so 100 watts more, which probably explains why it's got such a big performance increase, but is priced at $699. The same as the 2080 last time. So hopefully that should actually be a really good buy. And other things that I will touch on is, apparently these have got ridiculously powerful VR physics. Like the 3080, they advertise it as having 18 power phases. That's quite a lot. So it should actually be pretty damn hopeful. There's a couple of things that I want to get into, which we'll get into after we've covered the 3090, but so far it's looking pretty cool. 17 the 80, they're at the same price, but the 90, which is the sort of stand-in for the 2080 Ti, for now, I honestly do think there is going to be a 3080 Ti, and I'll explain my reasons in a bit, but the stand-in for now. So the 3090 is going to be the second card to be released, which will be being released on September 24th. It has got a GPU of 36 teraflops, so only 6 more than the 3080, but it has got over 10 10,000 cores apparently. 10,469 was the number which Gamers Nexus had. Sorry, 96, not 69. Just go ahead and amend that. Yeah, 10,496 CUDA cores. Memory has got 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X with a speed of some 19.5 gigabit per second and an astonishing nearly 1 terabyte per second, or more specifically 935.8 gigabytes per second bandwidth on a 384-bit bus. I'm just going to check something. Just going to check something real quickly. Yeah, we have not seen a bus with just this wide a bandwidth since the GTX 480. You know, that is the only card that I can think of that has got a 384-bit bus. That's absolutely huge. So in short, the memory on this should be an absolute monster. Going on to the actual ray tracing performance, and again, it's one of those, it seems to be about 5 to 10% better, but it has just a ton more memory than the 3080. So on tensor performance, it's got 285 tensor teraflops to the 238 of the 3080 with, let's see, 328 cores to 272. On the ray tracing performance, it's got 69 ray tracing teraflops with 82 cores compared to the 58 of the 3080 with its 68 cores. ROPs 96, which again is, you know, still a substantial increase over the 3080, which is at 88. And this is coming from Asus, so this may not be the Founders Edition, we don't know yet. But on the Asus model, at least, for the 3090, they're claiming to have 22 power phases, which is going to be quite a beefy VRM, and something like 70 amp phases as well, so they're going to be quite monstrous. NVIDIA is claiming for their Founders Edition that it's going to be a 350 watt card. Asus's is going to be 400 watts, so I'm guessing there might be a 20 or 21 phase, more than likely going to be 20 phases on the Founders Edition card looking at this so far. It is going to be $1,499, and the reason why I want this card, and why honestly it's kind of my dream card, and they sort of hit me out of the blue with this, they are claiming that the 3090 is so powerful that it can do 8K 60Hz. Yes, you heard me correctly, that is 7,680 pixels by 4,320 pixels at 60 Hz for modern games. I don't know if they're actually going to be able to do that. If they can do that, that is absolutely astonishing. And to go ahead and match up with that, they're also adding in 8K Shadowplay, which means not only will you be able to go ahead and play your games in a ridiculously gorgeous resolution, especially on, you know, large screens, but on top of that, you're going to have Shadowplay, so you can actually record this ridiculous gaming performance that I really want. I really want. Finally, just move on to the last couple of bits of this, AV1 decoding and HDMI 2.1, which it's going to need if it can actually run 8K 60. Now that we've gone ahead and run through the absolute stack from the 3070, ridiculously good bargain from what it's looking at, if it has the rasterization performance to back it up, to the just monstrous, and I mean monstrous, 3090, like, Jesus, that thing's a monster. I get why they upped the price up, because on this one it sort of makes sense for them to do. They could have put it up a lot more, but I'm actually happy with the amount of performance they're claiming. So that's very, very interesting. Now, the other weird thing about these is their short PCB on the Founders Edition. Whereas on most cards, you know, you've just essentially got a long card. On this one, they've sort of cut it in half with a V for, obviously, the fan. But this also means they've actually made it their most compact PCB yet. It's really, really, really weird. It's really cool, but it's also really, really, really weird. So what this could mean for me personally is I'm worried about overclocking, because don't get me wrong, whilst it is a very compact board and it should work wonders, it's very compact and you've got, you know, what was it, like 18 or 22 phase VRMs right on top of your memory chips. It's just like, I have a feeling it may affect memory overclocking performance. It could be perfectly fine and I'm just stalking out my rear. We don't know yet. But it's interesting, it's weird, and I actually can't wait to see it, especially if you start looking at the size of these, you know, like 3070 dual slot card, 3080 dual slot card, 3090 is this monstrous triple slot card that I need. I honestly just need it. It's a monster. I want it. But it is hard to go ahead and put into words just how ridiculously huge it is. So yeah, that has been the sort of news for this week and breaking down what was made out by NVIDIA last night. There is a lot of stuff going on. I really recommend that you don't buy anything until you've got reviews, and more than that, wait a few months so that we know about any sort of potential hardware fails, anything like that. Make sure that you wait before you buy it. But honestly, that 3090 and 3080 and 3070, all of them, honestly look like the biggest performance upgrade that we have had in a very, very, very long time. Like, whereas Pascal to Turing was, sort of 10-20%, if that. NVIDIA sort of marketing it to be, Ampere to be the new Pascal, a huge generational gap that makes you want to buy the next generation rather than do what I did and what many other people did, which is buy the older generation because it's cheaper and it has most of the performance anyway. And RTX was kind of a gimmick then, but now they've doubled, and I do mean they are claiming double or better the RTX performance. It actually makes a lot of sense to buy one of these RTX cards and actually play in RTX. We won't know anything for sure though until these cards are released, so do take everything today that was said with a grain of salt. Don't trust anything until you actually see it in person. But it's looking very interesting, and we will see more as time goes on. Anyway, we're going to have to go ahead and call the episode here, so like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. Any thoughts or questions, leave a form of a comment down below, down in the description. You can go ahead and find the timestamps for today's video. Discord, Patreon, Twitch, Facebook, and I think that's all the links are down there. There's a couple more probably, I always forget. Feel free to go ahead and check out the Discord and go ahead and leave me a message, and I'll go ahead and get straight back to you guys, or go ahead and leave it in the form of a comment down below. I'll get back to you all. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell for more content as always. This has been the 117th Con, signing off. Stay safe out there folks, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, ta-ra.